Hey, you. Yeah, you in the back. The one with the immaculate physique. There's a new VGU poll for League of Legends, bringing 5 long-neglected champions back into the spotlight, and it's our job as players to vote on which one of these champions deserves the VGU. A VGU, for those unaware, changes everything about the champion. The character design, model, animations, voice lines, abilities, particle effects, splash art, lore, and in some cases even the class of the champion. So no, just because Ahri got revealed to be getting some animation and model upgrades does not mean she's getting a VGU, it's an ASU, like Caitlyn. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Today, I'm here to guide you through our 5 VGU candidates, and what Riot would bring to the table should they rework them. Those 5 champion nominees being Skarner, Nocturne, Shyvana, Tryndamere, and Kogmaw. The first 3 being returning options from last year's VGU. Meanwhile, Trynd and Kog are here to fill the void left by Udyr winning last year's VGU poll. And Quinn just got the boot, I guess. Bird! A very interesting selection of champions, to say the least. No sign of Shaka or Corki is frankly baffling to me. But you know what else? No sign of Cho'Gath or Zilean. We riding high on copium tonight, fellas. But this begs the question. With all of these options, who should you vote for? Let me answer your hypothetical question with a question. Did any of you lads actually read what Riot plans to do with the champions should they rework them?
No.
But I suppose that's probably why you're here then, right? Who has time for reading anyways? I certainly don't. So let's take a brief look through each rework nominee to deduce who you think should be our first VGU of 2023. Now our first 3 VGUs have their text practically copy-pasted from last year's poll, so if I repeat points about them here that I already made a year ago, Riot did it first. You can't blame me. But in the case for Skarner's potential rework, I'd say hesitancy is the word of choice here, mostly because reworks have been on such an impressive streak as of late, perfectly modernizing the champion while still being entirely faithful to the original, both in design and in game. So it's strange for me to see, after all the praise and admiration these style of reworks have gotten, for Riot to turn around and say, hey, we're going back to making more Gallios. And don't take me the wrong way on that, I adore Galio. Everything about him is fantastic, but he isn't a good rework. And that goes for other champions like Sion, Poppy, and especially Aatrox.
Insects! The world ender has come!
While the end result of these reworks are great, the original champion is completely lost in translation. For most of these reworks, none of the old champion remains. They basically got deleted from League and replaced with a new champion of the same name. And it says right there, that's what they would do to Skarner. Well, his ult would be kept intact, everything else would be removed. All his other abilities, his design, and his lore would all be tossed aside. And listen, I'm not saying Skarner is perfect, far from it in fact, but to me, this method of rework, especially after the phenomenal reworks of recent years, just seems barbaric. If you want to see Skarner reworked because you think he's in desperate need of some love and attention, I'm with you, and I'm on your side. But understand that if you do vote for Skarner and he does win the poll, everything you know about Skarner and what makes him Skarner will be gone. Knowing Riot, they'll probably use the opportunity to make him even more of a battery than he already is.
Being dead wasn't a problem, but being first up, now that's a bitch.
It really feels like whoever runs these polls really wants Noct to get a rework, but Riot won't give them the resources to do it, so they keep putting him on the VGU poll to shove the idea of a Nocturne VGU down our throats. But how would they go about reworking Nocturne if he won the poll? Much like Skarner, it's copy-pasted from last year. He's a very popular champion for new players, but they drop him rather quickly as they realize his kit is essentially just R-button auto attack skill expression Yahoo. So to change him, they would still keep his ult, but modernize everything else. Note they don't say scrap like with Skarner. I would imagine this would be a more Pantheon-style rework, keeping the abilities basically the same, but they just function differently and have different utilities. They also say they would hone in on his fantasy of being the eternal nightmare, which is good because, let's be honest, at this point in time, Nocturne is just worse fiddlesticks. Gameplay-wise, they accomplish pretty much the exact same thing, and their thematic fantasy is nearly identical, being a primordial demon of fear. If I were to rework Nocturne, I would take him one of 2 ways. Either go crazy on the dream and nightmare side of his thematic, make him the true Freddy Krueger of Runeterra, which it seems like what Riot wants to do, or just make him a fucking Master Kusho. He literally had the exact same arm blades in the comic. People already mistake Nocturne for some weird version of Zed, so why not make Nocturne a key example of what happens to someone when they overdose on too much Prometheus goop?
Look around you, imagine dragons.
I'm calling it right now. With her popularity in the last poll, as well as her competition being 3 monster champions, and Tryndamere. I would not be surprised at all if Shyvana won this poll. Because I know y'all just want another monster girl to simp over because the 3,000 Vastaya we already have wasn't enough, I guess. And that's a shame. I know a Shyvana rework could be extremely cool because at her core, she is an extremely cool character. A half-human, half-dragon, able to turn into a full dragon, caught in the middle of a Demacian war. Does she side with her family and maybe lover behind the Demacian walls, or with her fellow magic users rebelling against the Mage Seeker tyranny? It's a really cool concept, but this is modern Riot Games we're talking about. We know exactly what they would do given the situation. If any of her skins the past decade have proven anything, the 2023 Shyvana rework half-dragon character would be a white girl with horns plastered onto her skull. Not to mention, Riot flat out mentions Akali and Irelia when describing how they'd like to change her gameplay-wise. Listen, I like what they did to Akali and Irelia's lore, but for the love of God, I only have one ban every game. I don't need an Irelia medieval edition. Trynd is an interesting case, not because for some reason he's taking priority over Corki, Shaka, or Cho'Gath, but because the support around him getting a rework is kind of strange. It's hard to call it support at all because most of the people I've seen clamoring for Trynd to win this poll are voting for him because they want him to be worse. Fellas, I hate to tell you, most champions become stronger after getting a VGU, and Trynd would be no exception. That ult you want removed so badly, that's one of the primary things they'll keep 100%. Hate his split pushing power? Riot wants to amplify that tenfold. Enjoy how his only counterplay is crowded team fights? Good thing they're looking into improving that, eh? Trynd is a prime example of why you should do your research. Don't just blindly vote on something without knowing what you're voting for. And while we get no clue as to what they do with his visuals, I highly doubt he'd change that much at all. He's a lot like Master Yi, Ashe, or Annie. His design is boring, but it's become too iconic. Realistically, there is one thing I could see Riot doing with his design, though. Perfect.
That's a bug! That's a bug! That is a bug!
If Tryndamere was a prime example of doing your research before voting, Kogmaw is the ultimate example. I was streaming the night before the poll went live, and I had so many viewers saying,
Kogmaw's on the VGU poll. Kogmaw's one of your favorite champions, isn't he? Aren't you gonna vote for him? You want the Void Puppy to get some love too, right? Vote for him. Vote for Kogmaw. Vote for Kogmaw.
I get it!
and while I wanted to, I didn't want to say right out the gate that I would because again, I didn't want to blindly vote without knowing what they would do to him. I did know what I wanted out of a Kogmaw rework though, which was only two things. One, that he should be more Void-like, but he should also keep his reputation as the cute monster. The term Void Puppy has become a thing for a reason. His recent skins have been successful for a reason. Kogmaw, while a little bit gross and a little bit ugly, has filled out the niche of being the cute monster. And number two, that his play styles be kept intact. Part of what I love about Kogmaw is that he can both be played as an auto-attacking hyper-carry ADC or a skill shot-based artillery mage. And this isn't something like Kai'Sa who can build AP or AD doing damage just the same no matter what. AP and AD Kogmaw have two entirely different sources of power and therefore often feel like two entirely different champions. While the player base is smaller, there's still a significant amount of Kogmaw players who prefer AP over AD, me included. So two things. Just two things I wanted to be preserved for a Kogmaw rework. I'm more than fine with making him more Void-like, changing his frankly awful passive, changing his lore, etc. As long as those two things are kept intact, Kogmaw will 100% have my vote. Kogmaw hasn't aged well at all. His kit is kind of all over the place, torn between a hyperscaling ADC and AP-focused artillery champ. He also feels out of place among his more sinister Void brethren. And while we love our cute Void Peppy, we want to make him feel more Void-y. We'll do our best to it. We'll do it. No! They'd kill AP Kogmaw. I'm done. Nope. Nope. They'd kill AP Kogmaw. It's the only reason.
No, finish the sentence!
We'll do our best to retain the artillery AP
But
portion,
if push comes to shove,
we'll sacrifice it!
No! We'll do our best, just like you did your best to keep Mordekaiser's old ult, or solidify Tom Kench's as support, or keep Udyr's fucking antlers intact. I'm sorry, fellas, but no. While Kogmaw could use some love, a new and improved passive is not worth sacrificing everything about him that makes him Kogmaw. So, there we go. 5 possible champion reworks, and honestly, man, I'm disappointed. But in the end, whoever wins is up to you guys. It's a voting system after all. Vote who you want to. Just know each rework option comes with its own benefits and risks. Kogmaw would be more Void-like and probably get a better passive, but in exchange he'd lose his champion identity. Tryndamere would probably be more fun to play, but likely be significantly more annoying and powerful in every aspect that people already hate about him. Skarner would finally get some much needed love and attention, but the Skarner we know would be deleted from League of Legends. Shyvana, except for one of these other candidates, has the most potential. She could have a cool new dragon form and a gameplay pattern focused more around it, but more than likely Riot will focus on her human side and they'll fall into the same face syndrome handbook they've been following for 3,000 years. And Nocturne could become way more thematically interesting while his kit is more developed and fun to play. Huh, no downsides to that one, huh? So yes, fellas, my vote is for Nocturne. While all the other reworks have something to lose, Nocturne only has something to gain. And if you think about it, Nocturne is practically on the same level as Shaco or Cho'Gath in that he really has no place in Runeterra. Let's give him that place. But those are my thoughts. What champion do you guys want to see reworked? Be sure to let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear why you want your favorite Dragon Lady to get her long-deserved update, maybe why you want to see the neglected Get Over Here man finally get the attention he's longed for, or maybe just how much of a Satan worshiper you are for even considering voting for Kogmaw. Necrit, you're dead to me!